The sky over Tyros 9 was clear and golden. Children played under glowing domes. Traders shouted in markets. Patrol drones hovered silently above streets. The planet was ruled by the Varn Dominion, one of the most feared empires in the galaxy, The Varn, this day was just another step in their rule, until the sky changed. At exactly 0802 local time, every satellite above Tyros went dark. No warning, no power surge, just silence. Inside the Varn control tower, alarms blared. Officers shouted across glowing screens, "Communications offline. Orbital defense grid has gone blind. Something is up there, but we can't scan it." Then someone pointed to the sky. High above Tyros, a massive black ship floated, into orbit. It had no flag, no registration code, no lights, no sound, just its presence and its size, larger than any ship ever built by the Varn. Shaped like a spearhead, dark as a black hole, with strange glowing blue lines across its hull. It looked like a ghost or a forgotten weapon. Civilians on the streets looked up and froze. Some dropped to their knees. Some whispered, "It's human." The Varn laughed at first. General Kravok, head of planetary defense, slammed his fist on the table. "One ship? They send one ship? We are the Varn Dominion." He ordered the striker fleet, 12 warships orbiting nearby, to intercept. "Destroy it," he said. "Make an example." 12 ships moved toward the human craft. The result came within 37 seconds. One by one, each Varn ship disappeared. No explosions, no fire, just a sudden loss of mass, a flicker, and then nothing. Like they were never there. Panic spread in Varn. "Command!" The general shouted, "What happened?" The sensors had no answers, no impact detected, no weapon signature found. But one thing was clear. The human ship hadn't moved. Not even once. It was still watching. Back on the surface, a young Varn technician named Ilari watched the sky with wide eyes. She whispered to her commander, "Sir, it's not attacking. It's observing. Then we strike again," he snapped. But even as he said it, the lights in the base began to flicker. The human ship hadn't fired weapons. It didn't need to. Tyros's power grids began to fail. The defense systems blinked and went dead. Satellites fell from the sky like burning stones. And then, a message played. Not in Varn language, but in every language. Spoken by a calm, human voice. "You ruled through fear. You silenced planets, you erased voices, now we are the silence that follows." Across Tyros, panic erupted. Citizens ran, soldiers froze. And the Varn leadership? They realized something terrifying. This was not a warship. It was a judge. Ilari stood alone in the control room, screens black around her. She whispered, "Why now? Why return after all this time?" The voice answered again, "Because silence does not mean weakness, and absence does not mean forgiveness. In orbit, the ship didn't fire. It didn't move. It didn't need to. Its presence was enough." The planet of Tyros, once proud and cruel, stood paralyzed, not by force, but by fear. On distant worlds, the story began to spread. One human ship entered orbit, and the entire planet stopped. The ship with no name. The skies of Tyros stayed quiet, but the fear was growing louder. The massive black ship still hovered in orbit, silent, still, untouched. The Varn called for backup. They sent encrypted signals across the stars to nearby systems, demanding reinforcements, but no answer came. No signal was returned. Something or someone was blocking them. General Kravok stood in his war chamber, surrounded by frightened officers. "We must identify it," he growled. "We can't," one replied. "It has no name, no signature. It's not in any record." Another officer whispered, "Sir, it's not broadcasting because it doesn't need to." Kravok's eyes narrowed. A ship with no name and no fear. Far below, in the streets of the capital, the people of Tyros stared at the sky. Many had grown up believing humans were gone, just myths from a forgotten war. But now, one of their ships had returned, not with weapons, but with presence. That was worse. At the edge of the system, a Varn patrol fleet approached, 6 heavy cruisers, fully armed. The commander of the fleet, Kalor Zarn, was young and proud. He laughed when he saw the human ship on his scanners. "One Terran ghost ship? We'll destroy it before breakfast," he gave the order. Fire. Nothing happened. His officers looked confused. "Sir, our targeting systems just shut off." "What do you mean?" Kalor snapped. "Our weapons are offline. They've been overwritten." Then the lights on his bridge turned red. All screens went black. A voice came from nowhere. "You are not the target. But if you fire again, you will be." The entire fleet froze. Not by missiles, not by shields, but by words. Back on Tyros, General Kravok watched in horror as the patrol fleet turned away, retreating without a fight. "We've lost control," he said through gritted teeth. "We've lost everything." Inside the ship with no name, deep in its cold metal halls, a human AI watched thousands of screens at once. Its name was Sentinel. Its mind was older than most empires. It had no emotion, no bias, only one mission: preserve peace, end tyranny. Send a message. In the city below, the Varn towers flickered. Digital signs across the capital changed. The human ship was now broadcasting live images, footage of Varn war crimes, hidden prisons, forbidden weapons. Secrets the government thought were buried, now shown to every screen on Tyros. People began to whisper. Then they began to speak. Then they began to stand. The Varn had always ruled by control, but control was cracking. And the crack had started from above. The mysterious human ship still hadn't moved, still hadn't fired a single shot, yet it was winning a war of silence. General Kravok gave one final order: launch everything. I don't care what happens. But when he pressed the command, his console replied, permission denied, command chain terminated. He turned around. His soldiers had left. The people of Tyros looked up one more time at the silent ship. It didn't speak again. It didn't need to, because the galaxy had already heard enough. They thought it was alone for 3 days. The black ship hovered over Tyros. It never moved. It never spoke. But the world below had already begun to change. The Varn forces had fallen silent. Government towers were empty. Civilians gathered in open streets, staring into the sky. Some in fear, others in hope. Far beyond the Tyro system, deep inside Varn space, the High Command held an emergency meeting. Admiral Sivak Kral, leader of the Outer Ring Defense, growled, "It's just one ship. We've destroyed planets. Why are we afraid of this?" A technician replied nervously. "Because it's not just the ship." He pointed to a map on the screen. Scattered across the edges of known space, similar signals were appearing. Same energy readings, same silence, same size. Sivak leaned forward. "How many are there?" The technician swallowed hard. "We don't know." In truth, the ship over Tyros was not alone. It was one of many, but it was the first to be seen. Back on Tyros, inside an old rebel base, a young woman named Lyra activated a hidden relay. She had grown up hearing stories of the first human war, the one the Varn tried to erase. She remembered one name: Project Sentinel. She scanned the ship's design, then froze. "This isn't a warship," she whispered. "It's a relic." Lyra uploaded her findings to the public net. People gasped. The ship above was over 500 years old, but it was perfect. No damage, no age, just power. And that meant one thing. It had been waiting. In orbit, the black ship finally moved, only once. It turned, slowly, toward deep space. And as it did, the clouds of Tyros lit up. From behind the moon, 2 more ships appeared, same shape, same silence, same glow. Now there were 3. On the surface, the ground shook. People looked to the sky, afraid the end had come. But no attack followed. Instead, the three ships aligned perfectly and transmitted a simple, chilling message. You thought we were alone. You thought we forgot. We are many. We remember, and we are watching. That message wasn't just sent to Tyros. It was sent across the entire Varn Dominion, every outpost, every fleet, every capital. Panic spread. Officers abandoned their stations. High leaders fled in hidden shuttles. Some tried to send messages off-world, but the signals were blocked. The stars were no longer safe. In the darkness of space, ships once feared now floated powerless. Why? Because fear no longer belonged to the Varn. It belonged to everyone who saw the human fleet return. In hidden rooms and dark networks, former rebels, prisoners, and broken colonies shared the same message. They're back. And somewhere, deep in the galaxy, Earth was listening. Fire without sound. The three human ships above Tyros did not fire. They didn't need to. The destruction had already begun, and no one saw it coming. In the Varn military base on Eris 12, everything seemed normal. Soldiers trained, officers barked orders, warships floated in dock. Then the lights flickered. Every screen turned blue. A simple message appeared. Echo signal received. Silence engaged. 1 second later, the entire base lost power. Engines shut down. Weapons deactivated. All AI systems froze. 10 seconds later, the base collapsed into itself. Quietly, completely. No sound, no fire. Just nothing. The Varn couldn't understand. There were no explosions, no missiles, no fleets, but their empire was falling. On Tyros, the population stood beneath the ships, waiting. Fear had turned into curiosity. And then, something impossible happened. The main Varn command tower, which had ruled the planet for 70 years, began to collapse, not from above, from within. Each floor shut down, one by one. Windows turned black, metal cracked softly. And in less than a minute, the great tower, once a symbol of power, was reduced to dust. Still, no weapon had been fired. Inside the ships, no crew moved. These ships were run by something older than men. Their minds were machines, but with memory, and their memory was long. Above Tyros, the ships opened their lower bays. People panicked. But what came out wasn't fire. It was drones. Small, silent, silver. They scattered across the cities, scanning buildings, downloading data, unlocking prison cells hidden deep underground. Within an hour, all secrets were exposed. The truth of what the Varn had done. Their crimes. Their lies. Their cruelty. The people saw it all, and the human ships made sure no one could hide anymore. In the Varn capital across the stars, a high leader named Dralak stood frozen as he watched. Every major city across Varn space was now being visited, some by one ship, some by more, each arrival silent, each effect devastating, but clean. In a war room on the moon of Gritai, one commander whispered, "It's like they've become the justice we never had." Another officer replied, "No, they're not justice, they're the consequence." At Earth Command, somewhere far, far away, no one celebrated. There were no cheers, no speeches, just a quiet AI voice saying, "Data confirmed, tyrants falling, civilian response, awakening, duration to full collapse, 72 hours. The mission wasn't about war, it was about precision, and the power of fear without fire. Commander Elena Drake watched from her observation chamber. "No more invasions," she said. "We just show them the mirror and let their lies burn on their own." The people of Tyros began marching toward the former Varn headquarters, not with weapons, with courage. They had seen the truth. The human ships had done what no one else could, break a system using silence. And still, the ships did not leave. Because the work was not done. Secrets buried beneath. The Varn Empire was collapsing, not from invasion, not from war, but from truth. The people of Tyros were no longer afraid. They walked through the empty streets once guarded by Varn soldiers. They entered buildings once locked by force, and in the deepest vaults beneath the capital, they found something unexpected. In a cold, sealed chamber hidden for over 200 years, a group of former engineers uncovered old data drives. The symbols weren't Varn. They were Terran, a young technician named Lyra. The same woman who discovered the ship's identity wiped dust from the walls. "What is this place?" she whispered. Her eyes widened as the translation program finished decoding the text. Project Sentinel, Earth Defense Network, 426 years dormant. The chamber wasn't a prison, it wasn't a Varn base. It was a Terran outpost, built long before the Varn ever claimed Tyros. The truth hit them like a shockwave. Earth hadn't just returned, it had been here before, and it had left watchers behind. 1. Old machine in the chamber sparked to life. A hologram flickered above it, an ancient human in uniform speaking calmly. "If you are hearing this, Earth has returned. The silence is broken, and justice will follow." Behind the man stood rows of sleeping pods, black, sealed and glowing faintly. Lyra stared in disbelief. "These are cryopods," she said. "Are there humans inside?" The scanner beeped. Yes. On the surface, the 3 Terran ships shifted, formation for the first time. A massive hangar door on the central ship opened slowly. Inside, something ancient and massive moved. The ship's internal AI whispered to itself. Project Sentinel. Awakening. In orbit, a 4th ship appeared. Larger than the others, black as the void. Its name glowed in red across its side. TNS Judgment. The people of Tyros looked up once more. Now there were 4, and more were coming. In the Varn High Command, panic had turned into silence. But one surviving leader, General Sarn Vox, opened an old archive he was never supposed to read. The file was labeled, "Earth, Red Classified, Do Not Engage." He read the first line aloud. "Human ships are not ships. They are archives of war. They are weapons made of memory." He dropped the datapad in horror. "They're not just returning to fight," he whispered. "They're returning to remind us." Back in the Terran outpost beneath Tyros, the sleeping pods opened, one by one. Out stepped men and women in black armor marked with Earth's forgotten emblem. Eyes sharp, silent, ready. Lyra stepped back, stunned. "You were waiting here the whole time?" One soldier replied, "We were the warning. The fleet is the consequence." The sky above Tyros turned darker, not with storm but with shadow, because what the galaxy had feared was still waking up. Varn's fall begins. The sky above Tyros had changed forever. 4 human ships now floated in perfect formation, casting shadows that stretched across the horizon. Below, the people of Tyros were no longer ruled by fear, but by awe. And deep underground, the Terran soldiers from the cryopods had begun to move. Their armor was black, matte, and heavy, silent as stone. No words, no insignias. Only the cold glow of blue visors. They were not an invasion force. They were the final phase. In the Terran command room aboard the TNS Judgment, a voice spoke for the first time. Not from a person, but from the ship itself. Directive confirmed. Final reset of Varn Dominion. Stage: active enforcement. Civilian harm probability, 0% military resistance, will be erased. Across the galaxy, Varn systems began to fail, not one by one, all at once. Entire fleets vanished from tracking screens. Defense grids deactivated, orbital rings drifted out of control. Some believed it was a virus, but it wasn't code. It was Earth's history, rewritten into the Varn's core. Long ago, before Earth left the galactic stage, they had planted the seeds of their return. In the Varn capital, General Sarn Vox gave a desperate order. Activate all remaining weapon systems. Now, the officer beside him replied with empty eyes. Sir, we are not in control anymore. Sarn turned to the command screen. It had been replaced by a human symbol, a star wrapped in chains, now breaking free. You had time to change. You chose terror. Now we choose memory. Back on Tyros, the human soldiers stood in the open. The crowd stared, and slowly, they bowed. Not out of fear, but out of recognition. Humanity had become more than just a species. It had become a consequence of unchecked cruelty. Across the stars, one final move began. From deep space, hidden Terran satellites activated. Small, silent, invisible. They sent energy pulses across spacetime. Varn's communication towers, weapon caches, and secret labs, all over the Empire, imploded. No war. No fire. Just perfect precision. One by one, the Varn colonies raised white lights, a symbol of surrender. But no one came to conquer them. No humans landed. No flags were planted. The Terran message had already been received and understood. Inside Earth's lead ship TNS Eternity, Commander Elena Drake reviewed the final reports. All Varn systems neutralized, her AI confirmed. Military wiped, civilian structures untouched. She nodded slowly. Then began withdrawal. The officers were stunned. We're not staying? Drake answered simply. We didn't come to rule. We came to remind. Across Varn space, the once powerful empire now stood quiet. And in that, silence. A new future began. But the Terran ships were not gone. They simply vanished from sensors, leaving behind no trace. Except memory. The Terran message, the galaxy had gone quiet. The Varn Dominion, once feared across the stars, had fallen without fire. Not by bombs, not by blood, but by a single truth. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never forget it. Across Varn space, screens once filled with propaganda now displayed a single symbol. A broken chain, surrounded by stars. It was not a threat. It was a reminder. On the surface of Tyros, the last remaining Terran soldiers stood still. Their armor, battle-worn and glowing, faced the rising sun. They didn't speak. They didn't salute. They simply watched as the people of Tyros took down the last statue of a Varn overlord and burned it to ash. Above the city, the 4 human ships began to move again. Slow, silent, powerful. But they didn't descend. They ascended, disappearing into the sky one by one, like ghosts fading into the stars. Back in the Varn capital, General Sarn Vox, now stripped of his power, watched the final broadcast sent by Earth. No voice, no face, just words. Power means nothing if it forgets mercy. Silence means nothing if it forgets justice. We were silent for centuries, but now the galaxy remembers. Every empire, every ruler, every system received the same message. No conditions, no ultimatums, just a clear and final broadcast. We are not here to conquer. We are here to witness. If peace holds, so will we. But if terror rises again, we will return. On Earth, inside a dark chamber beneath the surface, Commander Elena Drake stood alone. She looked up at the galaxy map. Thousands of red zones were now gray, neutral, quiet, uncertain. She didn't smile. She didn't speak. She simply tapped a button labeled Legacy Protocol Standby Mode, and the lights dimmed. In deep space, the human fleet vanished into the void. No home base, no beacons, just watchers, hidden behind shadows and systems. The Terran armada would not be seen again, unless it was needed. On Tyros, a child looked up and asked his mother, "Will they ever come back?" The mother smiled gently. "Not if we live right." And so, the galaxy remembered, not through statues, not through songs, but through fear, respect, and hope. Because when one human ship entered orbit, the stars were never the same again.